Good. So this is episode 76. It might be a short episode. I know we've said that before. We'll see what happens. Last episode was quite long.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think may have even been our longest episode, possibly.
It's up there. I think
It's certainly up
it's
there.
probably neck and neck to our longest episodes. I think they usually tend to be on the 1.5 hour range. I think I don't recall us going much over that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Now I just before this video started, I started sneezing a little bit, so I may blank my video occasionally.
Okay, your
Yep.
screen is out, by the way.
And I'm back. There we go. So
Oh,
just
good.
in
Yeah.
case you know why, it's because I'm sneezing or something like that. So
Okay, sounds good.
um, okay, so you wanted to talk about why you hadn't been very
Y-
active lately, or I've got the great man of history. Which would
Yeah.
you like to go first?
Let's kind of go into that territory. So I know I've said that I wanted to make some more videos and I'd be kind of doing more posts and stuff like that, but suffice to say, last episode I talked about how the computer crashed and I had like a lot of stress over recovering some of my files and stuff like that. And that's all well and good now. Everything worth recovering has been recovered, but um it kind of coincided with a time when I was having some insomnia. So I've been really fatigued. So I've been having a lot of nights where I just wake up so early in the morning and just never be able to get back to sleep again. And it was a
Um,
stressful time. So I just kind of and of course, this is the time where a lot of people I know were sending me videos to watch and stuff to read and all that kind of stuff. I promise I'll get to them, and I've been missing a lot of stuff like HBRs and all that kind of stuff. I have been trying to, aside from things like the goalpost, I've been really trying to kind of tone it down on the hyper intellectual stuff. I just wanted to decompress, relax, and do things on my own terms. I promise I'll get to them and everything. But in the meantime, I've been trying to finally get to work on my fictional series. I don't know if I've talked much about it, but it's going to be a very well. I can't divulge much. I don't want to give
yeah.
too much away, but it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be very influenced by very old manga and anime, and as well as classic Star Trek and everything. But I kind of want to really make it its own thing instead of just a bunch of homages. I kind of want to keep that to the down low, try and be as original as possible. I got some great ideas, and I'm pretty excited to finally get to work on it. I'm trying to
Yeah, great.
plot the yeah, I'm trying to plot the story from start to finish, almost as if it's like a series of novels. And anything could happen to me while I'm working on this one, right? So I kind of want to get the story down right before the graphics get done, and
Yeah,
I just want to uh, be sure somebody can handle it the way I want it to. If something were to happen to me, I can't work on it. But there's a lot of planning that's been going on, so a lot of my mind's been kind of going into that one. It's really helping me decompress. It's kind of like like very interesting couple of weeks, lows and highs, I suppose. So.
that's fantastic to hear. So yeah, so I guess that answers one of my questions. It's going to be a graphic novel.
Yeah, it's going to be in the manga style, and really, it's going to be non-cynical. It's going to be a very cheerful kind of setting, or at least the
Good.
theme is kind of wholesomeness in the face of adversity, I think. So that's
Okay.
a central theme to the story. I still can't give too much away, but uh, I'm kind of in talks with some like one or two people here to kind of arrange for some artwork. I do my original designs, of course, but somebody has to do the inking and stuff like that.
Of
I'm in
course.
charge of the story, but there's really not much more I can say about it. It's something that I'm finally kind of getting a head start on after a
Fabulous.
long time of trying to plot out how things are going to be. I've got 9 seasons worth of material outline at this point.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, like kind of like a almost the size of a season of Trek per
Yep.
per season,
Yep.
like that
Yeah.
worth of episodes. It'll have nice bottle shows and more arc related stuff. I'm pretty excited, but at the same time, I can't say much. So,
So
but
I can kind of envision it because I've actually been in Japanese bookstores and I've seen all the manga
mhm,
series and they'll, but one of them will be
yeah,
10, one of them will be 25 and they're all sort of
Hmm.
running along the bookshelf. So I see what you're getting at there.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's going to be pretty extensive. I just want to get the whole story down into a good ending point uh, before, like I said, something happens to me. This kind of stuff I've been planning in my head, because I could be hit by a bus or something, right? So I just want to be sure everything gets down on paper, everything is alive in some form or the other. So a lot of my time's been spent on that. I know I'm going to be working on AVFM stuff. I promise. More stuff for my channel. I promise. It's just, I needed this to decompress. So,
Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
really good. And I was going to say too, so I have also suffered with insomnia on and off for my entire life, which by the way is related to personality type. So as we've said before, I'm an INTP, you're an INTJ, and I believe both are somewhat predisposed towards getting insomnia. Unfortunately, I've also been recently, so I can empathise, I was going to say, so I've also
Mm,
been recently having some bad insomnia. Usually it's not much of a problem, but the last few months, for some reason, I've just been getting quite a bit of it. And I haven't even been stressed
mm.
or anything, so who knows? Anyway, so,
Right. Yeah.
but yes, it's important to be able to deal with it effectively. So it's great you found a way of doing it.
Yeah. It's something that's been helping me out. And aside from that, nice pipe during the evening is wonderful. It's been
Yeah,
my favorite way to kind of just not think about much and maybe
good.
read something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I'm glad I picked that one up. It's been really helpful.
yeah. Actually, I've been reading at night more too, and not off a Kindle or anything, off a
Hmm.
book. That's right.
Hmm. Right.
Exactly. That's right. Yep. And that does seem to be helping. Yep.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no flashing lights or anything, just a book.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
we're going to do a few things today.
hmm.
Great men of history. We've got the a man of note, and there's a new set of articles that I'm wanting to launch on A Voice for Men. I'm writing one myself, and I've invited other
Hmm.
people to write, and they're
Sure.
called Everyday. And the article series is called Everyday Men. So
Right.
I'll talk a little bit about that. I guess if there's nothing else, I might start on great men of history.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, so I picked Pythagoras for my great man of history. So we've picked all sorts of people that have been. I know I had a bit of a tendency towards sort of pick German mathematicians and physicists because there are so many of them who have been very influential in changing the
Yeah.
world. But I do think it's important to sort of pick people from different parts of the world and different cultures and so forth, at different times to demonstrate that
Right.
there have been. Throughout history, there have been enormous numbers of great men who have been influential. I mean, in prehistory, no doubt there were many who were very influential and helped their society survive who are lost to history and we'll never know who they were. And there are plenty of figures who aren't very well known historically.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes we don't know much about them either, actually. So, but
Yeah.
today I picked Pythagoras. I actually picked him about 6 or 8 weeks ago, but of course we had a long delay, and there were a few other things going
Yeah.
on. And then we skipped an episode with Great Bit of History. So, yeah, so poor old Pythagoras got kicked down the road a little bit. So here we are.
Sure.
So what I wanted to talk about though mainly was he was more than a mathematician. So
Hmm.
he's most well known for Pythagoras' theorem, which you can look up if you want. But I suppose I guess I've got I can just quickly read it out because I did grab a quick definition, which is best to read it for the definition. The sum of the areas of the two squares on the legs of a triangle equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Or the sum of the areas of the other two legs equal to the square of the area of the hypotenuse. So the idea is that obviously, if you have a triangle, if you find in a right angle triangle, if you have the square of the two sides, and you find those values. The classic one is 3 squared equals 9, 4 squared equals 16. Add them together, you get 25 for the hypotenuse, which is the other side.
Yeah.
He is remembered for this, and this is a very important result in mathematics. It's used, I guess, as a basis for geometry and all sorts of things. But there's so much more to this guy's life, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So
Hmm.
he was actually born on the Greek island of Samos. Now, we actually there's lots of things we don't know about him actually, but obviously somebody who lived that far back.
Yeah.
But many commentators soon after his day said that he came from a very prosperous family, and I think that that's often the case, particularly with people who've got the opportunity to do this sort of work. If you look at, say, during the Age of Enlightenment and so forth, many of the great physicists and many of the great scientists were came from well-to-do families. They had a lot of disposable time. They were intelligent and they were able to apply themselves into the physical sciences and so forth. And same thing here, I guess. He comes from a well-to-do family. He's got a good education, and he's able to apply himself. He had the opportunity to travel widely. This is something that a lot of people probably don't realize. They think that when he was so he traveled to Egypt, and he also traveled to Babylon, which is principally Iraq today.
Mhm.
When he was in Egypt, they think that he had exposure to Egyptian mathematics. The Egyptians had some quite sophisticated mathematics by the standards of their time, but they tended to be quite practical in their application. They didn't sort of do a lot of theoretical work. If they were working on mathematics, it was embedded at how to make a fulcrum work, or how to divert the river more effectively, or something like that.
Hmm.
But they think that Pythagoras may have had learned some of the Egyptian mathematics and then sort of explored it more on a theoretical basis. Anyway, settled in southern Italy and founded a secretive community. That's probably the nicest way I can put it. Might have been a bit of a cult,
Okay.
arguably, So it had very strict rules, with Pythagoras at the top of the tree. So he ruled the secretive community with an iron fist. He was vegetarian. We do know that.
Mhm.
There seems to have been a prohibition on eating beans, which I find to be
Okay.
quite interesting. Yeah, and
Hmm.
that's kind of nobody really knows why, but I find
Right.
that really interesting because beans are so nutritious, right? That they're really one of the things if you're a vegetarian you really do want to eat. So I wonder what it was like being a vegetarian and not being able to
Yeah.
eat beans. It might have been a bit challenging actually, but anyway, I guess
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so they also did a lot of things like wore simple clothes, wore simple white clothes, and so forth. Um, and but his philosophy is not well remembered, partly because it was his cult was so sorry, his secretive society was so secretive in what they were doing.
Mhm.
But it is believed that he had this idea that numbers were sort of fundamental to the nature of the universe, which,
Mhm.
in a very real way they are, right?
Of
Perhaps not in
course.
the way that perhaps not in the way that he thought, though. But
Right. Mhm.
yeah, he did postulate things like that there were probably ratios of planetary movement and so forth. And we do know, for example, that if you look at the moons of Jupiter or the moons of Saturn, they get into a resonant pattern, and they actually do produce fractions. So
Yeah.
one moon of Jupiter might have an orbit which is 150% of the other one, or something like that, and that's actually because of the gravitational effect they have on each other. So in a sense, I suppose part of what he was saying was right, which I think is kind of cool. But anyway, what I think is interesting too is that when at the time he was doing a lot of this work, a lot of the mathematics we take for granted, of course, didn't exist. Algebra didn't exist, for example, and a lot of
Mhm.
this stuff we might do, and we demonstrate, say, Pythagoras theorem with algebra today. But
Yeah.
he actually did a lot of it with geometry. That's actually how the ancient Greek mathematicians worked. So they would have sort of shapes, and they would actually do a lot of it physically by moving shapes around and so forth. Um, anyway, apparently at some point, so he was when he was settled in southern Italy, he got a bit involved in politics, and this may have upset some people, and perhaps they weren't very impressed by the fact he had a secretive community as well, a bit suspicious of that. They apparently were attacked at some point, and I think the community ended up breaking up, and he ended up returning to Greece. But anyway, where he died. So, but much more than a mathematician. This is something I've kind of known about for a long time, that he was more than a mathematician. But people don't realize the philosophical side of what he was doing and so forth, and
Mhm.
how as he believed that the universe was really based on numbers, and it is, but perhaps not in the way that he meant. Anyway,
Right. Mhm.
yeah. So I think very interesting character, and so there's a lot of things we don't know about him, but what we do, I think, was quite interesting. So. Uh, Next person I want to talk about is a Soviet naval officer by the name of Vasily. Arkhipov, or at least that's how I'm going to pronounce his surname. I hope I haven't
Okay,
butchered it too badly.
you're gonna have to send me the message with his how to spell his names.
Oh yes, I will. Yes, he's actually on the Wiki for Men page for the
Okay,
goalpost too. Yeah, the
that's good.
spell is
I
there.
keep forgetting that. So
But yeah, yeah. But Vasily Arkhipov. So he's one of the two Soviet naval officers that arguably saved the world during the Cold War. And the other one I did previously,
mm,
Petrov. So you can
yes,
I think it was about 2 or 3 episodes back. Anyway,
yep,
so Vasily Arkhipov. So he's a little bit earlier than Petrov actually. So Petrov was in the 80s. This is during the era of Able Archer. I think I talked about that
yeah.
and at a dangerous point in the Cold War in the early 1980s. But this is during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Arkhipov was a Soviet military officer, and he was quite a senior officer, and he actually so he was actually a flotilla commodore. So he actually had command of a flotilla of submarines, right? But it also happened to be the case that he had been assigned as the executive officer on a submarine called B-59. B-50, sorry, well, B-59 is obviously just one of many submarines in the Soviet Navy. Executive officer, for those who don't know, is the second most senior officer on a naval vessel after the captain.
Yeah.
But he actually outranked the captain, but was the executive officer because in most naval traditions, the captain is the most senior officer on their own ship, regardless of rank.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, but he was one of three senior officers on the B-59, and this is important. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the United States decided to, how will I put this? I'll put it how they put it, quarantine Cuba. Definitely not a naval blockade, because a naval blockade is an act of war, and this absolutely wasn't a naval blockade. It just happened to have ships around Cuba that stopped any ships trying to get in to look for materials that might help to develop or deploy nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Totally not a blockade, right? So the quarantine was stopping ships and so forth. Anyway, at one point, the U.S. Navy was actually dropping depth charges, but I don't think they were heavily armed. They weren't trying to damage the Soviet submarines. They were just trying to get them to come to the surface. So they did fire some depth charges at the B-59, and the B-59 captain actually thought that war had started, as in war between the Soviet Union and the United States, and
Hmm.
it could have even been a nuclear war by then because they're underwater. Submarines at depth at the time, and I think even today, have had a lot of difficulty transmitting. So they're essentially isolated. There were two other senior officers on board. Now, if there were only two officers, the captain and the executive officer both had to agree to deploy a nuclear torpedo. These submarines were equipped with one nuclear armed torpedo, which would sink a warship, right? Um, if there was a political officer on board, the political officer also had to agree. In this particular case, there was a political officer on board, and the captain and the political officer both believed that nuclear war had started and that they should launch the nuclear torpedo and sink an American ship. Vasily Arkhipov said that he thought that, in fact, war probably hadn't started and that they
Hmm.
should surface and contact Moscow and see what's going on.
Right.
And had he agreed that the war had started, and all three officers had thus agreed, they would have launched a nuclear torpedo, would have sunk an American warship, and quite possibly kicked off World War III.
Hmm.
Because he alone refused, and because their rules of engagement said that all three officers had to agree, the captain didn't launch it, and they ended up surfacing. And he was right, of course, and the war had not started.
Right.
So, yeah, we came very close to a nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is one of the most critical points. I mean, a lot of people have heard the story, but maybe don't know the specifics about him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so unlike Petrov, he was not punished. Petrov as I said in the previous episode, was punished for what he'd done because he broke protocol, whereas Arkhipov had stuck strictly to protocol, and so he wasn't punished. He ended up retiring. Actually, as a vice admiral. Ended up dying of cancer, which some people think may have been involved with his career. So
Ah,
where he was, where obviously he was exposed. In fact, there's one other aspect of his life that I was just going to talk about briefly. But he was exposed to some radiation. He had
mhm.
actually previously been on the K-19, which was another Soviet submarine that had a failure of the cooling system on the nuclear reactor, and there was actually a radiation release, and a number of the crew, including Arkhipov, were exposed to radiation. So some officers, or some engineers on that ship died as a result of that, as they basically fixed the problem
Yeah.
so that the submarine wouldn't have a meltdown. But Arkhipov was exposed to radiation, and some people think that that was related to his subsequent death by kidney cancer. So
Yeah.
anyway, so a great man, definitely a man of note, as I like to call them, who saved the world, as did Petrov, as I
Yes.
mentioned previously. So I do
Hmm.
think it's interesting that they're so often Soviet officers. I don't think this is
Yeah.
kind of an accident, actually. I think it has to
Hmm.
do with the political situation in the Cold War and the nature of the
Hmm.
Soviet Union and so forth. It had the fact that despite what was going on, you've got these individual men who are willing to stand up and stand their ground
Yeah,
and do
exactly.
what's right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, and
Yeah.
save lives in the process.
Yeah. Not what you call commonplace, I think. We highlight these few, but it's
Exactly, that's right. Well, that's right. The Soviet military actually was very much not one, as I understand it, which rewarded initiative at all. And in fact,
mhm.
that's been a criticism of the Russian military too more recently, that they really
Yeah.
don't reward initiative, and they have this sort of top-down approach, which really limits their abilities. But yes, exactly, which makes these guys even more unusual in that they were showing initiative and standing their ground and saving lives doing it.
Yes. Mhm.
So, the last thing I want to mention is Everyday Men, which is the new segment, or the new set, I just segment, the new set of articles on A Voice for Men. I'm writing one, and I think I've sent out a post on X encouraging men to, excuse
Yep.
me, well, anyone really, to make submissions about historical men who they think are worth writing about. Now, I'll just briefly cover it. First of all, I'll talk about how I came about this idea. So, I'm a bit of an amateur genealogist.
Okay.
I like digging back in history, and that's relaxing for me. So,
Yeah.
if I want to relax a little bit, I might do a bit of digging in the family tree or something like that. And I found all sorts of interesting things.
Hmm.
So one that's not related to this, but it's kind of an interesting story. But I'm actually descended from this. The rumor is he was this young boy who was born was the he his mum was as like a maid or something, and the rumor is the father was the lord of the manor. And
Yeah.
apparently, what happened was the maid got pregnant. That's one of my direct lineal ancestors got pregnant, great 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 grandmother or something like that. And the lord of the manor, she had a son, paid for his
Hmm.
education, and uh, that's apparent at the time. That was kind of a signal that actually he's the dad,
Yeah.
and what he would do, he would never acknowledge him, right?
Hmm.
Because they couldn't acknowledge him for they didn't want to give him a claim on the family's wealth and so forth. But
Yeah.
he would it was an open secret. He would pay for the boy's education and give him a good start in life, and off he would go, right? So
Hmm.
anyway, yeah. So that's a family story that's been passed down. It might not be true, but the fact that he paid for the boy's education is a bit of a clue that maybe there was something going on there. Anyway, fun. You
Yeah.
find some fun stuff in genealogy. So anyway,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
that's not what I want to talk about. So I was doing some research and I discovered I was looking at my one of my great 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 grandmothers, different one to the one I was just talking about, and
Sure.
I noticed I didn't have much on her brothers and sisters, so I started doing some research, and I found that she had a brother that died in 1916, and of
Hmm.
course that was World War One. So I started doing some digging, and it turned out that he had served on the Western Front, and he died on the Western Front, and so he's a great 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 uncle to me. And it struck me as quite sad that here's this guy. He died at 23 on the Western Front. Never got married. Never had any kids. Right. His name is largely forgotten, except for the fact that it turns up in family trees occasionally. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm gonna do some digging on him, and I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to write an article on him, and publish it. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, other people might like to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's where I came up with the everyday men. So the idea is that they're not famous people or anything like that. They're just men who I thought, well, originally I was just going to limit it to men who died in war, and I thought there's no reason for that. I can
No.
expand it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they might have served in the military. They might have died in war. They might just be, men who, had
Mhm.
showed great integrity and so forth, and you think were great figures and and deserve to be remembered, even though they didn't especially do anything that made them famous in their life. They just did what they felt was right and so forth.
Yeah.
Maybe they, brought up a family and their kids gave their kids a good middle class upbringing and so forth. Their kids were
Mhm.
successful, and so if you've got someone like a man like that in your family, by all means, write up an article and submit it, and we'll
Yep.
have a look at it, and we'll consider publishing it. I can't guarantee we'll publish every article, but we'll certainly look at it and publish the
Okay.
ones. And this will give these men a permanent record on A Voice for Men.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm taking steps to make sure that there's some permanence in the information on A Voice for Men and it isn't lost. So, in decades to come. So there'll be some record of them, and in the future, people can look at these articles and at least remember them. So, but yes, I found it quite sad that my great 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 uncle died on the Western Front, and the manner in which he died was quite sad, actually. So it
Mhm.
was essentially what we now call friendly fire. He was sitting. He was actually were on the very forward trench. They were actually in the combat zone, and a soldier next to him was sitting cleaning his rifle, and the rifle was pointed at my great 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 grandfather, great
Mhm.
great 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 uncle. Sorry, great 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 uncle,
Yeah. Yeah.
and um, this other soldier had not removed the bolt from the rifle, which they were under orders to do, and the rifle
Yeah.
discharged and shot him in the hip. Now it probably didn't initially seem like it was such a serious injury, but because he'd been
Mhm.
shot in the hip. But he essentially screamed and fell on the ground, and they rushed him to an aid station, which happened to be a Canadian aid station that was nearby,
Mhm.
and he died almost immediately
Mhm.
on arrival at the aid
Right.
station, and he's buried in Belgium to this day.
Mhm.
So they know they've got the. I'm gonna if at some stage I'm getting to that part of the world. I've never been to Belgium, but when I go, I'm going to go and actually find his grave. So, but yes, someone needs to remember these young men who died and didn't have any kids, and just
Yeah.
maybe their family would remember them for a generation or two, but then beyond that, they're largely gone. So
Mhm. Yes.
anyway, there we are. So yeah, that's how I came up with the idea of the Everyday Men article. So
Yeah. Right. Let's try and think of some more and send them
yeah,
over. I'll try and come up with some too.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
right. If you think of anybody who's any men who are relevant in your family who might, yeah, just
Yeah.
men who did the right thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Right.
So
Well, like I'm kind of thinking of the art of storytelling here. Kind of just a way of kind of passing down like tales of any given person that requires remembering.
yes.
We don't tell much in the way of stories anymore. It seems to me. There's some, but that habit's kind of lost over time. I don't know if you agree or not, but
Hmm. In fact, Peter Wright has made this point too, that the importance of storytelling. And yeah, it's certainly changed, I guess, in the sense that people certainly still tell stories, but it's more entertainment,
Mhm.
broadcast stories from the media rather than individual stories. That's probably a good
Right.
point. You probably did see people um, passing down these sort of stories maybe a few generations ago, so
Yeah.
people remember the uncle and the great uncle and so forth. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I do agree. People have stopped telling those sort of family stories, haven't they?
Mhm.
Yeah. As I said, like the one about my ancestor, which is supposedly the father was the lord of the manor. So as I said, it might not be true, but
Yeah.
as there's a general principle in history and genealogy that says that if somebody tells a negative story about themselves or their family, it's probably true. And in this case, the story claims the child is illegitimate. So for that reason, I tend to believe it. And it's not saying, oh,
Mm.
it wasn't this, oh, he could have had the title. No, no, no. He's just an illegitimate child who, whose
Yeah.
education was paid for by the Lord of the Manor. So
Mhm.
that's the type of thing that sounds plausible to me. Anyway,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So yeah, that's all I had actually
Okay.
today. It's
Well, is it okay if I kind of pad something here? Like episodes ago, um, we were in talks, about doing this or that and the other, and we had to skip episodes, had to cancel for one reason or another. You want to talk about Star Trek, I think, and yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was you wanted to talk about.
okay. So there was one point I think yes, you're right. I was going to mention. I'm not sure we ever did get to because we had some long episodes and we cancelled a few
Yeah.
items.
Hmm.
So in fact, it's interestingly enough, it's about a month or so since I first heard this rumor, maybe 2 months actually, and it would
Hmm.
hopefully be coming to fruition about now. So the rumor is, the rumor I heard is that the Kurtzman era, which is the era of Star Trek that what we would call New Trek and that many people don't like,
Yep. Hmm.
that a new Star Trek series was going to be produced that essentially excised it from the canon. The idea being that they would essentially they would be Discovery and even Picard and a few different other Star Trek series would just not be mentioned anymore. They would be retconned out and not mentioned at all. And to me, that's about the only way that Star Trek could be saved. Now, whether or not this
Hmm.
comes true, I don't know. But they're basically claiming that Kurtzman. They finally realised that Kurtzman was just terrible and was just destroying it. And why it took them 10 years to figure that out, I'm not really sure. But uh,
Yeah.
if true, it's probably about the only thing in my mind that would save Star Trek at this point. So the rumor I heard, as I said about 2 months ago, it's supposed to be coming to fruition about now actually. So that
Yeah.
that a new series would come out, which of course there is a new series which is post Star Trek Enterprise, as I understand it. So there's I believe there was a discussion about something a new series that was post Star Trek Enterprise and would talk about the early years of the Federation. Uh,
Okay.
non Star Trek fans may be a little bit lost at that point.
I see. Yeah. Well, I think they tried to do so. Star Trek Enterprise had basically 3 seasons, right? Or was it no
Yeah,
4 seasons? I think.
four
Yeah,
four
yeah,
series. Yeah,
four. Yeah, 4 seasons. They were
yeah.
they were wanting to do things like if they had fifth season and so forth, they would do things like the Earth Romulan War that was established in Trek
Yes.
canon pretty early, and this is going to be tricky because no one is supposed to see a Romulan. The
Right.
Balance of Terror episode in original series is the first time you actually see a Romulan and how they exactly resemble Vulcans.
Exactly. For
So
those who
that was like
don't
the big
know,
shock moment.
I'm going to let out a spoiler from the 1960s at this point. So Vulcans and Romulans are the same species in Star Trek. I
Yep.
believe Vulcan was the original world,
Hmm.
and where the backstory is that when the Vulcans turned towards logic about 1500 years before the series is set, some Vulcans rejected this and left their world and settled elsewhere, and they ended up establishing the Romulan Star Empire. But at some point, the Vulcans, sort of lost touch with their brethren and didn't realize that the Romulans were actually the same species until they see them in the original series, and then they realize what's happened. Which is why
Right.
during the entire 4 year war, which I believe it's meant to be of the Empire of the war with the Romulans, they can't see a Romulan. That's right,
Right.
as you say.
Mhm. Exactly. So it's just a lot of rules to kind of follow if they were going to
Yes.
go that route. But that's what I'm assuming when they're talking about the early years of the Federation. So we're going to probably have the dataless class ones with the spherical holes, and there's going to be some, it's going to have to, so it can't make the same mistake that Discovery did, because
Yeah.
that too was supposed to be early years of the Federation, like
Yes.
when, yeah. But the thing is, it can't look better and more advanced than uh, Enterprise E, like the really advanced future stuff. But everything looked so ridiculously hyper advanced compared to Enterprise E.
It was very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, so it can't make that mistake again. You
Yes.
can follow it very faithfully, and Enterprise did this, by the way. So In a Mirror Darkly. That's the one where they cross over. They had two episodes in the Mirror Universe, right? They got the ship, the Defiant from the Tholian web that made its way across to the past in the Mirror Universe, right? And
Yes, that's
so
right.
everything had to be faithful, and they did it. That was like the best thing.
Yes.
What? Yeah. I mean, I'm sick of the Mirror Universe personally, but it was still a good episode. Yeah,
Yeah, I did at one point actually just watch all the Mirror Universe episodes in order, just so.
yeah,
But haven't watched. Watched very little Discovery. I watched. I think I managed to get a half an episode in, and then tried again on the third season, and again failed. So,
yes,
so I haven't watched their mirror. For those who don't know, the Discovery, Star Trek Discovery had a lot of Mirror Universe in it. So I think they probably
yes.
overdid it, I
Where
suspect.
they were not supposed to. The Mirror Universe is supposed to be a new thing in the
Yeah.
original series.
Right. That's a good point, actually. That's true. The
Yes,
first point.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's right. In Star Trek Enterprise, they didn't know
No,
that it had
the
come.
entire episode, the two-parter, took place in the Mirror
Yeah,
Universe. There's no
that's right. You're
interaction
right. Thank you. That's
with the,
right.
yeah, right,
And but
yeah,
that's right. But the ship that they found had come from our universe.
exactly,
But
yeah,
the people in
yeah,
that universe didn't know that. Yeah,
yeah.
or they weren't sure of
The
it. Yeah.
the opening credits were from the Mirror Universe too. It's like this
Yes. Yes.
militaristic imperial kind of
Yes.
thing instead of the normal one.
In
So
fact,
it's just fun. Yeah,
I did like the Mirror Universe episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, and I loved the intro for the Mirror Universe of
yeah,
Star Trek Enterprise. It really is very
yeah,
well done. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It mirrors the
But
original,
yeah,
the normal one, but yes, from a different for a parallel
exactly.
universe. Yeah,
Yes, but here's the point I was trying to make. So they didn't pretty up the Constitution class ship, right? Or the uniforms
that's right.
or anything.
That's right.
And everything still felt futuristic to the Enterprise timeline.
Yes,
So, it felt like it was from its future still without changing anything. Now,
yeah,
I think the Gorn was kind of CGI and a bit more faster than the Gorn in the original episode, but that's a minor nitpick. I was pretty happy with what they did. So,
yes, yes, exactly. I really like those two episodes. But yes, so that is what I've heard anyway.
mhm.
I don't know if it's true that they are going to excise the Kurtzman track, and I suppose they could still replay it if they wanted, but it would be independent of the regular kind of timeline. So
Mhm.
we'll see if that's true or whether it's just a
Yeah.
rumor. So
Yeah, I mean, they can excise the other timeline if they want, but they still have to come up with competent storytelling to really save Star Trek, I think.
very true. That is a very
Mm,
good point. Yes, that's right.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
so many, even Strange New Worlds,
yeah,
which toned down woke, etc., quite a lot,
yeah,
still wasn't the story still weren't great in my
yeah.
view.
Right. And there's, we really do need to get rid of the woke stuff. No more shoehorning in LGBT and any of that stuff. It's just, uh, that is just, I can't understand how anyone could really stomach that and be like a fan of the original lore. It's just uh, I have nothing but bad things to say about that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I didn't really have anything else to comment on Star Trek. I don't think. As I said, it was
Okay,
about 2 months ago when I first heard this rumor, so we'll see what happens.
okay, yeah, sounds good. I figured I'd bring it up because it seemed
Yeah,
kind of serious. So,
good point. I'm glad you did actually. So
yeah, right,
yeah.
yeah,
Other than that, I just have Zoe McLellan.
yeah.
I don't know
Let's
if there's anything else you want to add.
no, let's keep it a nice compact episode this time around. Let's go over
Yeah,
Zoe McLellan.
we did have quite a long one last time. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh, okay, as of May 2026, a warrant is outstanding for the arrest of Zoe McLellan in relation to charges of kidnapping, child stealing, and child custody deprivation. McLellan is a public figure who has appeared in numerous popular television shows, including Star Trek Voyager, JAG, NCIS New Orleans, and Designated Survivor. Her face is familiar to millions. It is extraordinary that she has evaded detection for so long. McClellan was reportedly residing in an apartment in River Ridge, Louisiana in April 2021 and may still be residing in the area. McClellan grew up in the area of Port Orchard, Washington State, and may have returned to the area. Some sources believe that McClellan has left the United States and is residing in Canada or Costa Rica. Prior to disappearing, McClellan was known to use the alias Sarah Chandler. Anyone with any relevant information should contact the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you next time.
Sure. See ya.
Bye.